Peace. Welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, happy Friday. First, we got a lot to talk about today. First, let's talk about how a black superintendent out of Wisconsin, Green Bay, Wisconsin, has resigned from the Wisconsin School District after making some disparaging and racial remarks on an Atlanta interview. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, school dress code. Now that the decision has been rendered by the judge in Texas around Darrell George, school dress code is back into the forefront of the discussion on the education space. And we're asking the question, is it a measure of discipline or is this another form of racism? Later on, we'll talk about how progressives are now urging President Biden to act right now on reparations and racial justice. And of course, later on, we're going to talk about how a Florida House bill is looking to ban social media use for minors. We'll have those conversations, and of course, we want to hear from you. So make sure you get ready to join us as we have these discussions right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, happy Friday and welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Wow, oh wow, we are at the end of the week, folks, and I hope you've had a dynamic week. We've been having a fantastic week here on the show, and I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in and being a part of the discussion. Now, we're streaming live on our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure you go to our website today, download the app for free on all of your devices. You can also follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And we ask you to put something in the pot to support us in this movement that we are embarked upon. So just go to our website today for all the latest news, information, and so much more at blackstarnetwork.com. Now, we're also streaming live on Amazon platforms. You can check us out on Amazon News on your Fire TV. You can find us there. We're also on the Amazon Prime Video. So just find us on the Prime Video app under Live TV, the news, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, then Live TV and News. We're also on the Freevee network. Big shout out to Freevee for supporting us. You can check us out on now under News for Black Star Network. And we're on Plex TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network or find us on the Live TV, the news, and opinion. Now, we're also streaming on Big Brother Roland Martin's social media pages. You can find us there on his Facebook page and on his YouTube channel. And it's on both of those spaces, folks, that you can be a part of the conversation as being a part of the illustrious culture crew for today. And we would love to hear you. That's right. The crew is checking in from all around the country, and I'm very excited to have them once again join me for these discussions. I got Pastor Damon Blissett. I see you. Pastor, I got something for you today, man. We're going to have some great conversations, Pastor. Big brother Damon, thank you so much. The ABX girl, I see you. Tiana, I see you. Who else we got here? We got Jawan Yvette, I see you. Robin Welch, I see you. Brian Christian, good afternoon and happy Friday to you too, Brother Brian. Thank you for checking in. And all of you who are streaming in, thank you so much. And we'll be joined by our fantastic contributors that you can check out every Friday here on The Culture. My sister, Kimberly Morrow, who is was a professor. She is an educator. She's a speaker. She's joining us here as well as she's been doing for the past few weeks on 2024. And then later on, we're going to be joined by our sister, Corinna Denise, who is another fantastic culture crew member. She is a contributor. She's also a college advisor, as well as a political strategist as well. So I'm going to bring my sister back into the frame. Let's bring Kimberly back. My sister, Kimberly. Good afternoon, Kimberly. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. And, I have to say this. I love that every week you give me new positions.
I do.
Yes, you do.
I do. I'll be like, yo, she a speaker today. She can cook. There we go. Get the money, Kim.
You speaking things into existence.
I'm speaking things. Look, I'm speaking big things into existence. Because if you
accepting all of them, yes.
Look, if you come on this platform, your life is going to change forever after you leave. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I love it. I love it.
Kev, let's talk first. Let's talk about the situation in Wisconsin and Green Bay.
Ooh.
This is the story of Mr. Claude Tiller Jr. If y'all haven't heard about this story, be prepared. Mr. Tiller, who was the first Black superintendent of schools in Green Bay, he recently just had to resign from the Wisconsin School District after making, yeah, that's the face you make. That's the face you make when you do some wild stuff. After making some disparaging and racial remarks on, I guess he did an interview down in Atlanta as part of a, what they call a training. I guess it's like a professional development training that he had to do. He had to travel from Wisconsin to Georgia. And as a result of those remarks, the Green Bay school, let me just pull this up for you. Let's just share with you a little bit about the background of this. He was forced to step down because the Green Bay School District released this recording of its appearance on the Atlanta radio show. Take a look at this. The entire interview, including conversations Tiller had with the host during breaks, was live streamed on Facebook, right? It was first live streamed on Facebook. The host informed that his appearance would be streamed. He did this interview on WAOK AM on February the 6th. Now, during the interview, he was asked about his conversation with mostly white teachers. This is the wild stuff. He said, "I'm a bald head man and I wear bow ties. So first of all, they think that I'm a Muslim. They think I like to fix bean pies. And that's furthest from the truth. So I have to go debunking some microaggressions before I even go into the school. They think majority of us, we like fried chicken and watermelon. I prefer my chicken baked." He added that as a bald head Black man with a bow tie, they get my passion confused with anger. Let's go to the second. I just want to throw out the second quote, and then we're going to take our first pause. Lisa, let's go to the quote one. On this recording, he is caught because the recording was live streamed and essentially the mic was hot. So he was caught on this recording where he was referring to a female principal as a, quote, wicked witch and using a disparaging slang word to describe her. Then during one of the breaks, the show's host refers to Green Bay as about as lily white as I have ever seen. And former Superintendent Tiller responds, "The lily on top of the lily." I'm gonna let this marinate for a minute, Kim. I'm gonna let this marinate. And then we're gonna go into it. Crew, I want to get your take on this. Do you think that it was right for the superintendent to step down, Claude Tiller Jr.? He stepped down as the superintendent in Wisconsin because of these disparaging and racial remarks. I want you to share your thoughts, post your comments, and let's have a conversation. And stay tuned. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Check this out. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are investing a record $7 billion into HBCUs. Billions for campus improvements, grants, and debt relief. Billions more for HBCUs. Endless possibilities for us.
You heard why we're marching, and it's really a launch. It's not even a march. We're launching.
That's right.
A 42-week campaign. March the 2nd at 10 o'clock in Raleigh and 33 other state capitals and the District of Columbia. This is a historic move to mobilize the most powerful untapped block of voters in this country. That's right. Poor and low wealth voters who make up 87 million votes. And it's never been tried before. Never been tried before in history. At the same time, same message, same focus. And when that power turns loose, they will not be able to figure out the political calculus. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to shake things up. I'm ready to get up out of the valley. I'm ready for God to put his spirit on us. I'm ready to be used to change this nation. And what we're saying is, can't we come together? Can't we come together around an agenda? You ain't got to like everything about Remark. You don't have to like everything about Sangria. You don't have to like everything about Long Choir. But can we come together and say it's time to end poverty as the fourth leading cause of death? It's time to have $15 and a living wage indexed with inflation. So every time inflation goes up, the minimum wage goes up. It's time to have health care for all. It's time to fully fund public education. Can't we come together? It's time to protect women's right to women's health. It's time to have affordable housing for everybody. It's time to stop the proliferation of guns. Ain't no way folk ought to be able to have more guns than they have food, more guns than they have meat on their table. That makes no sense. Isn't it time for division to be ended and love to take over? Can't we organize around that? Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't need to like everything about you, but can't we organize for power? Can't we stand for justice? Can't we love everybody for just a little while? Can't we come up out of the valley? Can these bones live?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. I'm joined by my Sister Kimberly Morrow, one of our great contributors here on the show. We're talking about the case of Mr. Claude Tiller Jr., the former superintendent of schools in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Mr. Tiller had decided to move forward and resign after a closed-door meeting with school board members because he was caught on a recording where he made some disparaging remarks about his colleagues, and he made some racially charged remarks about how his colleagues see him. And I want to get your take on this. So post your comments as we have this conversation and we talk about the ongoing conversation that we've been having when you have Black folks in positions of power and influence about how they should behave, for lack of a better word. But more importantly, it speaks a lot about character. It speaks a lot about the time frame that the culture in which we're living in. And so let me get Kim. I want to get your take on this because this is a principal. He is the principal of a school.
Superintendent. He's a superintendent.
I'm sorry, superintendent. Correctly. Thank you. Here's a Black man who's a superintendent. But he's superintendent of a school in a city that's a little bit over 100,000 people. Green Bay, Wisconsin is not a big city. And the racial makeup of the city is that it's 72% white and about 4% Black. But he was the first Black superintendent of schools for Green Bay. What's your take on this?
Okay, so I'm gonna put on one of my hats right now. I'm gonna put on my administrator hat because you give me all these titles. So this is an actual title. And I'm gonna look at this from an administrative point of view. Here's where he was wrong. Here's where he went wrong. He forgot his position. He forgot that he is a superintendent. That means that when you're speaking in that capacity as a superintendent, you really do have to watch what you say. So there are some things he said that I disagree with were racially charged. He was expressing his truth. He said that people looked at him as a bald head man who wears bow ties, that he was seen as Muslim. And right. He said people had made comments about, or he perceived or said people made comments, I'm not quite sure, that they believed that he liked fried chicken and watermelon. Okay. The radio personality said Green Bay was lily white, and he said it's the lily on top. I don't feel that that was derogatory, because when they compare Black people, they'll say, you know, he's black as dirt. A lily is a very beautiful flower. I don't have issue with that either. Here's where I take issue with, and he should have realized what he said. When he made the comment about one of his, was it a teacher or a
it's a female principal, yeah.
Okay, a principal, and called her a wicked witch and another derogatory term, that crossed the line.
Yeah.
That crossed the line. As the superintendent, you don't talk about your staff that way. You don't, because now that opens you up for all types of litigation. Now you cannot evaluate that person, because anything you do now will be seen as biased, even if that teacher or principal, even if it was deserving that her evaluation may have been low. Now you can't do it. So he compromised himself as the school superintendent when he made that derogatory term about that principal. Now, myself, I would have handled things differently when I've worked in predominantly white school districts. But I'm different. You know, we all have to do things our way. I would have, if the radio announcer would have said, oh, you, Green Bay is lily white, I may have deflected, chuckled, something I would not have added on to it. Again, that's me. But again, lily white, a lily is not a derogatory term. A lily is a beautiful flower. A lily
but he was saying it, but the host it was a setup.
I get that. And I'm not
saying that I'm not saying the host was intentionally trying to set this guy, Mr. Tiller up.
Honestly, so I don't want to get caught in those weeds. That part, I'm not debating that. I just wanted to show you that a lot of times when they compare Black people, they'll say black is dirt, black is mud. Those are derogatory. You know, I don't want to be compared to dirt or to mud. Okay, that's all I'm saying. But now the issue with his derogatory term about a principal who is under him, he's a superintendent. He knows HR. To be a superintendent, that means you've been in the business for a while. You know HR, you know the rules. You don't go around disparaging people who work under you. That's where I have to completely disagree. And I think he should have resigned. Did
you think he should have resigned?
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think he should have been forced to resign. I think as a superintendent, after he listened to the playback, he would not have accepted that behavior from any of his principals.
Nope.
And so he should not accept that behavior for himself.
I agree with you.
I don't think he should have been forced. I think he should have resigned. He should have resigned on his own, personally.
Now, I think he should have resigned as well. Here's why, and I know we got to take another pause. The reason is, here's my first thing. If you feel this way about the people that you are supposed to serve, then you should have never gotten to the role or the position at all. Public service, you know, and I've seen this as an activist and as an organizer in Baltimore and across this country. I've seen this happen. Some of us, Kim, we get in positions of power and influence and leadership, and we get there and it's like we want to go on a kamikaze mission and blow ourselves up, right? In an attempt to talk bad about the system, right? If you're in public service, that means that you're in some way, shape, or form going to have to be either an ambassador or an advocate of the system, because that's the system that we're currently living in. That's public service. The other part about public service is that you actually have to want to be there to serve the public.
All of the public.
All of the public, right? Nobody.
Everyone in that school district, whether they are white or Black or Hispanic, he serves all of them.
And guess what?
You're absolutely correct. That's, again, now I may have chuckled or I would have tried to deflect, but I also would have realized that these people in this school district, regardless of their race, I serve all of them. And that's why I said after he listened to that playback, he should have said, you know what, I can't even go back there. Because whether that's his truth or not, he still serves all of those parents, every last one of them, not just the ones that look like him.
Hey, look, we're gonna take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's get some comments from the crew here. Crew, what is your take on this? We're talking about a black superintendent out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. He chose to resign after making some disparaging and racial remarks. Do you think that he should have resigned? Give me your take on this as we have the conversation. We're streaming live now on Roland Martin's YouTube channel and on his Facebook page, and I would love to hear what you got to say. Stay with us. You're tuned into The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Check this out. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are investing a record $7 billion into HBCUs. Billions for campus improvements, grants, and debt relief. Billions more for HBCUs. Endless possibilities for us.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by Assistant Sister Kimberly Morrow, who's one of our contributors here, and she is an administrator and educator. She's a principal. And we're talking about the situation of Mr. Claude Tiller Jr., the former superintendent of schools in Green Bay, Wisconsin, who had to resign, I don't know whether he chose to resign or had to resign, but he resigned as a result of some disparaging and racial remarks that he made on an Atlanta interview on a business trip. I want y'all to understand, this wasn't like he just went down to Atlanta hanging out with friends. He went down to Atlanta because of his role as a superintendent. And he went on the radio show, or he did his interview. They told him, hey, this thing is live streamed. And it's like, boom, you want to quote unquote speak your truth. Now, again, I don't have a problem with the fact that, you want to be in public service. But I am personally just tired of folks putting their foot in their mouths, Kimberly, when they talk about people, right? We had the same situation out here in LA just like over a year ago, where you had Latino city council people who spoke bad. And they made some very racial, disparaging comments about the people that they're going to serve. And I don't want this. So I don't want our listeners and watchers to say, oh, this is just a black thing. No, it's not a black thing. This is a people thing, right? This is a problem that we see in this country where we want to get in positions of power and leadership. And then we want to crap on the people who are supposed to serve. We want to crap on the people who are supporting us and think that's okay. And that's not okay. And I don't care whether you're black, white, Asian, Latino, whoever the case, whoever you are. If you are in the position of doing public work and nobody forced you to do public work, then that means that you should have a healthy respect for the people that you serve. Now, they can call you all types of names, but I'm a spiritual man, Kimberly. So if I'm doing good work, right, my intentions are good. I'm trying to help people. I'm like Jesus, when he say, "Oh, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." You know what I'm saying? You got to rise above that. And you can't tell me as a black man who is the first black superintendent that you did not think about, hey, you know what? If I say this, it's going to put an X on my back. And here's the other part. This is the really, really sad part about this. They probably will not put another black superintendent in that position for years to come. Now, some people say, well, that might be jumping to conclusions for Farajii. We don't know, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just saying, because public trust, if you're working in a city that's 72% white, a school and 4% black, and then you got all these white students that you're supposed to serve and think about the interest of, and they put you in a position. Again, I'm going back to my original point. Was it a kamikaze mission? Did you just want to get all the way up to the top only to say, you know what, I'm going to talk bad about white people? Or that's one way you can do it, but I ain't going to get so far. Or if you want to work in the position and a part of the system and you're going to reform it from the inside, you got to keep your mouth shut about certain things. You just got to keep your mouth shut. And I know some people say, well, I got to speak my truth. Here's the thing real quick, Kimberly. Sometimes, and this is something that I've been taught, sometimes even when the truth is spoken out of season, it can be just as harmful as not speaking the truth at all in some cases.
Yeah. And
you see what I'm saying?
I do. I have another take on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Interesting take. So he lives in Wisconsin, right? He was here in Atlanta. Oh, I'm saying here in Atlanta, like I'm still in Atlanta. You know, I lived in Atlanta for a long time. You remember that?
Yeah.
Right? I worked in Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta. I went to school in Atlanta. I taught in Atlanta.
Hey, y'all, Kimberly is in LA, y'all.
Still in Atlanta.
Kimberly is right outside of LA, y'all.
So I said, here in Atlanta. No, but in Atlanta, I know you from a place where it's Chocolate City, but think about it. He coming from Wisconsin. He in Atlanta. It's black. He got a little too comfortable. He was at a black radio station.
I know.
He forgot. I think he forgot that he was a superintendent. I really believe that. So I don't want to put the brother down. I don't think it was a kamikaze.
No.
I really think he forgot who he was.
He thought he was talking to black folks, and and that's what we do. That's what we do. I get it. But when you're live streaming and your mic is hot, that's all I'm gonna say. When you're live streaming,
he thought he was.
He like, look, man, look, man. But they little white, blah, 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 blah. Man, let me tell you something.
That's he forgot. That's
but even though
I'm reading it, he forgot.
But here's the other thing though. But even if that's the case, right? If your mind is really in that space, like, man, I don't really want to do it, then why you take the position, bro? I'm sorry. Like, I part of me is still like, but you should have, if you didn't want to serve in that capacity, if you got that much going on within your heart and your mind and your spirit, then why you take the position, bro? Because again,
from what I read, he applied for the position because his wife recommended it. Remember, he said he didn't think he would get it, but his wife told him to apply. I don't know, Farajii. Look, this is all my opinion. I don't know the man. I'm just basing things on what I read. I don't know. I would hope that he wanted the position. I would hope that he went in there with good intentions. I would really hope that. I think he just forgot that who he was at the time he was doing that interview, and that happened. But again, putting on my administrator hat, do I condone it? Do I say, oh, that's okay, give him a pass? No, I'm sorry. You have a position of power. You are at the top. You are a superintendent of schools. I was not only, but I was a principal. So, and I know better. So I know he knew better. So that's one where I have to agree that he should have resigned. And
no, that's agree. I get it. I get it. Robin Welch, you say part of what he was saying is true. I have to defend my blackness all the time because I'm the only black teacher in my program. And there are a few blacks in administration, but mostly black students. Okay. But I don't know. And we would have to listen to the course of the interview to get a full context of the situation. But even if a person says, oh man, you're working on a white, but like, yeah, I do, but we're working to change the racial dynamics of the district. You know what I'm saying? We want to invite more of our people to come into the district because we're doing something. Like come on, you can get political in a lot of different ways, man.
And that would have been him as a superintendent speaking. I think, again, he forgot his position and he was speaking as whoever Tiller, I know Dr. Tiller, but I'm not sure what his first name is. He was
Claude.
Claude. He was speaking as Claude and just having a conversation like he was Claude. But he came on that show as Superintendent Dr. Tiller, and he forgot that. And that is where the problem lies.
I think the other part, here's the other part, because he went through whatever he has gone through, his personal experience in dealing with the white woman principal, and he might have experienced some real deep racism. So he needs he needs an outlet to vent that, which I understand. But again, you signed up for this. I'm gonna be honest with you. You signed up for this, right? You didn't have to do it.
And I don't understand, Farajii. That's what journaling is for. That's what a therapist is for. That's what a mentor is for. That is not what WAOK radio station is for. Again, principal hat on.
All right, let me get Glenette. You said, unfortunately, Glenette Brooks, you said, unfortunately, as a supervisor, you have to be careful, especially as a black administrator, because they will file a case of bias, and 9 times out of 10, they will win if you make remarks about your staff. Facts. Absolute facts. Minkley Natasha Surge, you said, we take abuse on a daily basis, but we always have to turn the other cheek. Sometimes people get tired. And I understand that, Nate. I understand that. But again, this is what you signed up for. I'm gonna keep it just like that. Let's stop it. You are a black man in a predominantly white city with a predominantly white school population. This is what you signed up for. What did you expect? Did you not expect there to be some microaggressions and some racism and some bias? This is what you signed up for. So you got to ask yourself, is this what I want to do before you even move forward? Because now all of this could have been eradicated. Now your whole reputation, you worked so hard to earn the reputation of being this distinguished, educated, and administrator. You get to the top of the top, as you say, Kimberly, and then at the same time, you fall from grace on a national level in such a big way. This is all over the country. In such a big way. You signed up for this. So either we take them hits and make sure that somebody got to blaze the trail in right spaces so that the next black person who comes into that leadership role, their time there could be a little easier. But this is what we signed up for. I don't want to hear like, man, we got to speak our truth. Your truth is your truth, and that's all well and good. But again, if it's spoken out of season, it can be just as harmful as not speaking no truth at all.
Right. I think that would have been better stated after he'd retired and maybe written a book about it and was on a national circuit promoting his book, and he shared certain stories, but definitely not while you're still employed by the school district. If you recall what I told you one other time, we have to, when I was a principal, I was always told, remember, the district signs your check. I really just think he forgot those things. And he forgot Human Resources 101. We don't talk negatively about our staff. not on a national platform or whatever type of platform that was. It's just not done. So
it's not done.
No.
He could have handled this much better. And it's unfortunate that it had to go down this way. But you know what I'm saying? Like you have to be aware of the dynamics at play here. All right, we got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, let's have a conversation, folks. I want to talk a little bit about school dress codes as a result of what we saw with that ruling yesterday in Texas. Now there's a conversation that has reemerged about school dress codes. We're asking the question because Black students are saying this may be the case, that this dress code isn't really about discipline and uniformity, or is this pure, straight racism? We'll have that conversation with Kimberly Morrow and with you. Stay with us. It's a culture here on the Black Star Network.
You heard why we're marching, and it's really a launch. It's not even a march. We're launching.
That's right.
A 42-week campaign. March the 2nd at 10 o'clock in Raleigh and 33 other state capitals and the District of Columbia. This is a historic move to mobilize the most powerful untapped block of voters in this country. Poor and low wealth voters who make up 87 million votes. And it's never been tried before. Never been tried before in history. At the same time, the same message, same focus. And when that power turns loose, they will not be able to figure out the political calculus. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to shake things up. I'm ready to get up out of the valley. I'm ready for God to put his spirit on us. I'm ready to be used to change this nation. And what we're saying is, can't we come together? Can't we come together around an agenda? You ain't got to like everything about Remark. You don't have to like everything about Sangria. You don't have to like everything about Long Choir. But can we come together and say, it's time to end poverty as the fourth leading cause of death? It's time to have $15 and a living wage indexed with inflation. So every time inflation goes up, the minimum wage goes up. It's time to have health care for all. It's time to fully fund public education. Can't we come together? It's time to protect women's right to women's health. It's time to have affordable housing for everybody. It's time to stop the proliferation of guns. Ain't no way folk ought to be able to have more guns than they have food, more guns than they have meat on their table. That makes no sense. Isn't it time for division to be ended and love to take over? Can't we organize around that? Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't need to like everything about you, but can't we organize for power? Can't we stand for justice? Can't we love everybody for just a little while? Can't we come up out of the valley? Can these bones live?
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues. Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere. It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm joined by my sister, Kimberly Morrow, as we have another conversation lined up for you folks. Let's stay in the school system. But as a result of what we saw yesterday with that judgment coming down yesterday, Kimberly, in Texas, where little young brother, 18-year-old Daryl George, and the school district down in Texas, Barber Hills Independent Schools, and how the judge essentially ruled in favor of the school district, saying that they were in their legal rights to discipline Daryl George the way they did, putting him out of school and the whole nine. There's a conversation about school dress codes right now, and Black students are at the forefront and at the center of that conversation. I want to share with you this piece around that came out in the AP News around dress code. And we're asking the question whether it's discipline or racism. Take a look at this. Let's put quote 1 up on the screen, please, Elise. Thank you. To school administrators, strict dress codes can be tools for promoting uniformity and discipline, but advocates say the codes disproportionately affect students of color and the punishments disrupt learning. Schools that enforce strict dress codes have higher rates of punishment that take students away from learning, such as suspensions and expulsions, according to an October 2022 report from the Government Accountability Office. The report called on the U.S. Department of Education to provide resources to help schools design more equitable dress codes. Now, let's talk about let's put up quote number 2 as we have this conversation. In stringent public school dress codes, some see vestiges of racist efforts to control the appearance of Black people dating back to slavery. In the 1700s, South Carolina's Negro Act made it illegal for Black people to dress, quote, above their condition, end quote. Long after slavery was abolished, Black Americans were still stigmatized for not adopting grooming habits that fit white European beauty standards and norms. Kimberly, talk to me about this. Are we seeing this now? And like I said, Black students are speaking out about the dress codes in their schools and in the districts. And then we're seeing what happened with Daryl George. Do you see it as a form of racism, or is this a way to get students to understand the importance of uniformity and discipline?
This is a form of racism, and it bothers me. This case bothers me. One, that is taking place in Texas, which already has its history of doing this with students. They did this back in 2020 with another student. So I don't like it. I don't like that the judge sided with the school district, and the fact that the school district or the principal even cited that, well, because the affirmative action in colleges wasn't upheld by the Supreme Court, they won't uphold this. I don't like this at all. And it is a form of racism. It truly is, because they are going after a cultural way of doing hair, locks. It's locks, or the other young lady, it was her box braids. These are hairstyles that are culturally relevant to Black people. So I don't like this at all, Farajii. I don't like this.
But are we, and here's the thing, is there a way to I guess, to help students to understand the importance of uniformity? Because I think that, especially now culturally, when you're talking about being in uniform with anything, and I'm not talking about just with the dress codes, it kind of sets people off, Kimberly. Like, people feel like, no, I want to do my own thing, right? Like, I want to be my own person, which is fine. But in some cases, I think that there is some value in uniformity. That's part of the reason why I think some of these discussions around bringing Black folks together, we read the Reverend Barber piece, that we can have these differences, but still come together and be uniform about some big topic things. But culturally, that seems to be disrupted. That idea of let's come together, let's all do the same thing. People really take umbrage with that.
Yeah, and they should, because we're not, the uniform isn't around locks, it isn't around braids. So you're asking us to be uniform or have uniformity around a European idealized standard of beauty. That part bothers me, and that really is not what dress code is supposed to be about, uniformity. Dress code is supposed to be about making sure students are dressed appropriately as though they were going to be going to the workplace. They're supposed to make sure that their skirts aren't too short, that they're not showing cleavage, that their hair isn't dirty and unkept. So I take issue with this type of discipline that this student is receiving. His punishment does not fit the offense. So he's suspended from school where he can learn because of his hair. And there are students who are fighting and bringing guns to school, but you're going to take this child out of school from learning because of his hair. There are so many issues with this story. There are so many issues. Since when I was a principal, we didn't suspend students for dress code. So this is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous case. It's ridiculous that they are, and it seems this is what it appears to me, Farajii. Again, I like to preface things with this is my opinion. I feel like they are using this to challenge the Crown Act. They didn't like it when it was passed. Now they're trying to challenge it just based upon what that person wrote in the article, okay? And so the Crown Act is to protect us, to allow us to wear our natural hairstyles. So right now, they're attacking locks and braids. So next, are they gonna attack natural hair and tell us that we have to have our hair straightened to be uniform?
Well, let's take it to, let's take it to the next level. How about in the workplace? Because there are some workplaces, and as we know, both of us as professionals, we work in a lot of different spaces, and they have certain standards of dress in the workplace. How do we prepare the next generation for understanding that sometimes even in the industry you want to be in, there is a certain code of conduct, there's a certain dress code. How do we prepare them for that change and that possible shift from childhood into adulthood?
So I want to bring it back to a previous conversation we had, Farajii, about why students are not going to college now, and some of it is because it costs too much. Well, a lot of it is they don't want to get sucked into this corporate world. They don't want to work for someone else. They want to become entrepreneurs. This is why, because this generation does not want to work for corporations that are stifling their creativity, and they feel like their dress is a part of their creativity. And again, my personal opinion, I believe that these companies, these businesses have to move into the 21st century. We can't keep regulating how people dress because, again, how they wear their hair, because that is based on a European standard of beauty. That's why you have a lot of people of color, a lot of Black people, a lot of young people who are like, you know what? I don't want to work for anybody. I want to be an entrepreneur. And they'll probably be a broke entrepreneur for a while, but for them, it's better than doing what our generation did and what our parents' generation did. Just go work for the man, just go get a good job and work for the man. Do I agree with it? I'm not saying that I do, but I understand why a lot of these young people are like, no, I don't want to work for anybody. And some of these businesses really have to start doing things a lot different. Now, what I have told my students to prepare them is that sometimes you're going to have to do things you don't necessarily want to do and don't agree with. But if you're going to take the job and you're going to get that paycheck, there are things that you're going to have to do. You can't fight every battle. So you have to make that choice if you're going to get that paycheck. So I think what we do, but we have to lay things out for them. You have to let them know they have a choice. They don't have to work for that corporation. They don't have to work for that business that is not allowing them to express themselves in their dress or their hairstyle, which may mean they are going to make less money, but they need to know that there are options. They don't have to do that if they feel that strongly about it.
Look, we got to take a quick pause, but I want to continue just for a few minutes on the other side talking about this. We're going to be joined by our sister, Corinna Denise, get her take on this. But as we're talking about school dress codes, talking about is it a form of discipline or is it another form of racism? Crew, I want to get your take on this as y'all have been chatting about it on the YouTube chat. Definitely post your comments. Definitely share your thoughts on this. Big brother Willie Frazier, you said the hairpiece I see as racism. I see uniforms as a way to keep kids from getting bullied. You can't tell who's poor of everyone if everyone is wearing the same thing. Absolutely, I agree. I agree. I agree with you on this one, brother Willie. That the hair thing is one thing, right? But when you're talking about the clothes, why not put a little boundaries on those clothes? Put a little restriction. And it's not, and I think part of it, folks, and if we want to take this pause, it's not about restricting self-expression, it's about preserving self-expression in different spaces. All right, we'll continue the conversation on the other side with Kimberly, Corinna, and you. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Check this out. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are investing a record $7 billion into HBCUs. Billions for campus improvements, grants, and debt relief. Billions more for HBCUs. Endless possibilities for us.
Talk about blackness and what happens in black culture. We're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Greg Carr, here at the Black Table, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, and we've been having, excuse me, getting the words out of my mouth. We've been having a fantastic conversation talking about school dress codes as a result of what happened yesterday from that judgment around the hairstyle of Daryl George, the 18-year-old in Texas, who was going through a battle with the school district down that he was enrolled in just outside of Houston, Texas. And the situation of the judge deciding to rule in favor of the school district and saying that they do have the legal right to infringe any type of consequences on Brother Daryl and his family as a result of the legislation, the Crown Act, that the Crown Act does not protect Daryl George of the length of his hair as the judge sees fit. Now, whether the family is going to appeal that case or not, but what has happened is that there is a reinvigorated conversation about school dress codes where Black students, not just in Texas, but all across the country, are starting to feel the real brunt of being told that their self-expression may be problematic. And so some are going as far as to say that the school dress codes are racist, even though the codes and the laws and the districts are saying, no, it's not racist. This is a way to enforce uniformity and discipline. So we're talking a little bit about that. I've been checking in with my sister, Kimberly Morrow, who is an educator, administrator. And we're also joined by my sister, Corinna Denise, who's a college admissions advisor, as well as a political strategist. Corinna, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to let you know, because your hair is that way, we're going to not let you be on the show right now.
Oh, but I'm not. This is the Black Star Network. So, Kings and Coils should be, okay. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. All right, Corinna. I wanted to take a few.
Can I just point out how beautiful Corinna looks today? I mean, you look beautiful every day. You look very beautiful today. I'll just say that.
You.
My sisters are looking. No. Keep going. So Corinna, I wanted to have a few more minutes on this discussion because I want to get your take on it. Is this what do you make of this school dress code conversation, especially when we know the statistics that Black students are penalized and punished at a higher rate than white students when it comes to quote unquote infractions or violations to the dress code? We know that that's based on the data, right, Kimberly? Like that is something that we know. But the fact remains that we're still culturally in a kind of a tight spot because we want Black students to be able to express themselves, but we also know that when they go into certain workspaces, when they go into other places outside of school, they're going to be asked to kind of be on the same page as everyone else. What do you see in the matter?
Yeah. So I see this in kind of two parts, right? Because I have worked in schools that, they do have uniforms. So I'm going to talk about the good part of that first. I do think, it's helpful for parents. It's helpful for kids to get ready in the morning. They know what they're going to wear, their uniform, nice and neat. And, some things to make sure that also safety measures, right? I've worked in school districts where they allow the kids to wear flip-flops to school, and that's not really safe, right? Like your toes are spread out, anything could happen, you could get hurt. Or, young ladies, the skirts are just too high. I remember when I was in middle school, we had a rule of thumb that your skirt had to be the length of where your middle finger stops when you have your hand straight down on the side of your leg. So I do think it brings a sense of balance. Now, here's where it can be abused and misused, right? When we talk about race, specifically to the example of our young brother, right? With his hair. It's just a matter of control, right? And to sort of discipline us into saying, no, you can't express yourself that way. But what's the problem? My hair is neat. It's not on my shoulders. Like I am adhering to the dress code. But no, it's just a matter of, no, we want you to cut it. We don't want you to wear it that way at all. I've also been in situations where I've seen kids, they got to have maybe just an all Black shoe. And I mean like an all Black sneaker, okay, Farajii? Like it can't be like a Nike where it's black at the top and then like the bottom base is like a white, or you're gonna get a fraction for that, right? Some type of disciplinary measure. Dead of winter, the kids are outside, it's cold. So you got on your Uggs, your winter boots before you come into the building. You think you could go on homeroom and just change into your sneakers? No, you better change those boots at the door while it's cold outside, or you're going to be disciplined. So it's things like that really I find to be very much in that realm of racism or control, especially when you're disciplining, Black or brown children particularly. So I take issue with that. So really,
here's the thing though. Y'all remember, and I'm going back to what Willie Frazier said. Y'all remember, and I don't know if there's schools like this, so Corinna and Kimberly, y'all got to check me if I'm wrong. But like if you go to Catholic schools, they had uniforms. If you go to some Christian schools, uniforms. If you go to an Islamic school, uniforms, right? Some public schools in districts across this country have uniforms, right? Because Brother Willie said it prevents bullying. It prevents like somebody having more money or wearing brands versus somebody else. And I see a real value in that. I do see a value in that. They have, now Kimberly, tell me if I'm wrong again, there have been studies to show that the level of bullying, taunting, violence that among students go down when there is uniforms or when there is a quote unquote dress code among the students. I think I've seen that in a couple of times. So what do we say to those institutions, Kimberly, who work from that space? Do we say, hey, you guys are antiquated and outdated, y'all no more, y'all shouldn't be instituting any type of dress code?
No, and I don't think Corinna nor myself are saying that. Listen, I don't mind school uniforms. I think your audience knows I have my own school, Dorsell Morrow Academy. From 2020 to 2022, we met 5 days a week in person. My students wear uniforms. Now I meet with a few students 2 days a week. They wear uniforms. When we go on field trip, they wear uniforms. I don't have a problem with uniforms. For the many reasons Corinna said, I believe that they promote equality, equity, all of that. There's not a problem with uniforms. My problem or my issue with these school districts is when they attack Black hair.
Right.
So in 2020, Texas had an issue with a young girl who had box braids. Now 2024 is this issue with this young man with dreadlocks. All I'm saying is, why are you attacking their hairstyle? And we know that that's rooted in Black culture. Not what he was wearing, not that he didn't want to wear their uniform, his hair. And the uniformity they want is a European standard of beauty. That's the issue. Would they have suspended the young girl or kept a young girl out of school?
Probably not.
Her hair purple? I don't know. We don't know. But we know young people do that all the time. They dye their hair pink, they dye their hair purple, but we don't know because they're not putting that in the paper. So my issue is only with the hair.
So the hair is fine, and you don't like my music said again. Uniforms aren't dress codes, though. Okay, let's go a little deeper very quickly before we take our next pause. Dress codes mean don't wear any particular pieces of clothing that could be considered offensive, provocative. If you have certain inappropriate, if you got certain type of imagery on the shirt. Girls can't wear certain type of tops and all of that stuff. Like, I understand it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I understand it, and that's not a bad thing. That is not and I'm to Kimberly's point, hair is one thing, but I'm saying dress code, when you're talking about what's on the body, I think there should be some sort of like, hey, we got some boundaries here. Because some of these little young sisters and brothers, they'll wear some wild stuff to school, man. And it will. I don't care. Look, crew, if y'all haven't walked into a high school in 2024, you need to you ain't got to walk through it. Just stand outside. Don't look creepy now. Don't look all weird. But
Farajii, I know we got to go to break, but I really would like to share something special with the crew when we come back from break.
So you always dropping something. You always dropping something. All right, look, let's take a quick pause. Let's go back. Let's take this pause. Let's then come back and hear what Corinna had to say. And I got some more conversations lined up for you for the second half of the show. Folks, stay tuned. We're just getting started here on the second half, right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Check this out. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are investing a record $7 billion into HBCUs. Billions for campus improvements, grants, and debt relief. Billions more for HBCUs. Endless possibilities for us.
You heard why we're marching, and it's really a launch. It's not even a march. We're launching.
That's right.
A 42-week campaign. March the 2nd. At 10 o'clock in Raleigh and 33 other state capitals and the District of Columbia. This is a historic move to mobilize the most powerful untapped block of voters in this country, poor and low wealth voters, who make up 87 million votes. And it's never been tried before. Never been tried before in history. At the same time, the same message, same focus. And when that power turns loose, they will not be able to figure out the political calculus. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to shake things up. I'm ready to get up out of the valley. I'm ready for God to put his spirit on us. I'm ready to be used to change this nation. And what we're saying is, can't we come together? Can't we come together around an agenda? You ain't got to like everything about Remark. You don't have to like everything about Sangria. You don't have to like everything about Long Choir. But can we come together and say, it's time to end poverty as the fourth leading cause of death? It's time to have $15 and a living wage indexed with inflation. So every time inflation goes up, the minimum wage goes up. It's time to have health care for all. It's time to fully fund public education. Can't we come together? It's time to protect women's right to women's health. It's time to have affordable housing for everybody. It's time to stop the proliferation of guns. Ain't no way folk ought to be able to have more guns than they have food, more guns than they have meat on their table. That makes no sense. Isn't it time for division to be ended and love to take over? Can't we organize around that? Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't need to like everything about you, but can't we organize for power? Can't we stand for justice? Can't we love everybody for just a little while? Can't we come up out of the valley? Can these bones live?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sisters, Kimberly Morrow, Corinna Denise, as we've been talking about school dress codes, hairstyles, and so much more, and how some are saying, Black students are saying, someone asked in the chat, well, why are we talking about dress codes if nobody is in support of them, or people are against them? Because Black students are at the center of the conversation. Black students are we cannot think or we cannot forget that Black students are the ones most affected by these type of policies, right? Now, the other thing is, and I know, Corinna, you got something that you want to share with us. The other thing is that, you know, these codes and policies and everything, we can't keep doing the comparative shopping that, oh, if white people do this, how come white people? Come on, y'all. This is 2024. I remember saying this at the beginning of the year of the show. This year, I'm not looking at what I wish for things to be. I'm looking at the way things are. Let's just get it in our heads. There is a double standard, a higher expectation, and more that people want to see from that we should see from ourselves. If we keep comparing ourselves to the action of our white counterpart, then we won't make the type of progress that we need to make as a people. I'm sorry. And we won't face the reality of where we are in America. There is a double standard. It is not fair. Let's acknowledge those two things. There is a double standard and it is not fair. But guess what? This is the space that we find ourselves in as Black people in America. And we just got to accept that, Kimberly and Corinna. There's no back and forth. No, well, white people do this and how? There's a double standard. It's not fair. And this is a modern day America. It is what it is. Am I wrong in thinking this, Kimberly?
So I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I'm going to say
you can tell me if I'm wrong.
I'm not going to say you're wrong. You sound like my 83-year-old father, because that's what he tells me all the time. And he says we have to accept it. And I'm going to say, no, we don't. We don't have to.
No, I'm not saying that we have to accept it. I'm just saying we have to. No. I'm saying that we have to acknowledge it. Like we can't operate as if we're working on the same from the same set of rules. We're not. I'm sorry, we're not.
I said
now once we acknowledge it,
we have to call it out.
Right.
And that's all we're doing. We're calling it out. We acknowledge it, but call it out. We don't acknowledge. Maybe you said accept it because that's the way my father says it all the time. And you kind of sounded like him just now. But we acknowledge it.
He's a very wise man.
But we call it out, Farajii. And that's all I think Corinna and I are doing it. We've acknowledged the problem, but we're calling it out. And so I think when you just acknowledge it and then try to live within it, but you don't call it out, I think that's the piece that's been missing. I know the generation before us accepted it. My generation kind of went along with that generation. And I think this next generation, millennials and Gen Z, they're calling it out. So I'm standing with them. I'm calling it out too, because I've been the go along. I've been the person to, you know what, I got this job. Let me go along with them. Let me this is what they say to do. They told me to suspend that kid. I'm going to do it. They told me to do this. I'm going to do it. I've gone along. Now I'm ready to call this stuff out.
Yeah, and I think, Farajii, we're definitely in agreement that, yeah, uniforms do bring some sense of uniformity. Like I said, even when I go into the office, I created my own uniform, right? I wear my school shirt, a pair of pants. Like, I just don't even feel like being bothered to. I hate ironing, doing all of that. So I made my own uniform. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever to make my life easier, but it is helpful for the kids. But I think what Kimberly and I are speaking to as to how that uniform policy can be abused, which we see what is happening in Texas. But you know what? I just want to round this thing out and just
round it out.
Empowering things today with our hair. Okay, our hair is beautiful, and I just want to. I'm sure you guys know, but so I was in Kemet, aka the Black Land of the Black people, known today as Egypt, last summer. And this is one of the first pictures that I took. So if at least you could share that. This is our hair, y'all. Okay, this is in the Egyptian Museum. I almost get emotional even looking at it now. And I just remember the feelings like we just couldn't stop talking about the hair. On the right, you'll see that's the locks. And to the left, I think that's locks and some braids too. So we have been wearing our hair like this for thousands of years. Okay.
Hey, Lisa, can we probably make that bigger? Because I want people to see that. That's incredible. Yeah. That's a beautiful picture.
Thousands of years.
I don't know if you can make it bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even in the temples, right? The sketches of the braids. I saw the ruler in her mummified state, her braids intact, thousands of years later. So I just want to say that all to say that the way we wear our hair is nothing new. There were so many things that mirror what we do now as a people. So we have been wearing our hair like this for centuries.
No, that's a great point. That's
and we know that, right? So that's what I'm saying. I've seen it, and we'll believe, that Elizabeth Taylor was Cleopatra, but if you actually take the journey, you'll see differently. So they know the truth, they know what's hidden, and therefore we see this in present day and time where no, you can't wear your locks. We either want you to cut them off. Or, you know what? Okay, I have my locks. You don't want me to wear them down. I'm not going to wear them down. I'm going to pull them up, but it's still an issue because it's control. And that's where the school dress code becomes abusive. And that's where it's definitely racism because to your point, Farajii, our kids are at the center of it. But I just wanted to share, our hair. Like I've seen it, and it's one thing to read about it and to learn about it, but to see it.
That's a great point.
I want to put it. Always worn our hair, and there's nothing unusual about it.
Corinna, let's put that picture back up one more time because I think that's an excellent point. Look at that, y'all.
Beautiful.
That is interesting that we have been doing all types of goodwill to our hair for centuries. And my hope is that Corinna and Kimberly, that this empowers us to be more confident and to be more self-assured, right? About our personal expression. And then look, this is not a conversation. This is not me being against personal expression. I mean, because look at me clearly. I got locks myself. But this is also making sure that, when you're talking about the next generation, giving them boundaries. And I think both of us, I think all three of us can attest to the fact that when you give a child or a young person some boundaries, as much as they might he and haw, boundaries and some level of discipline and understanding rules and that shows that you are, and that's why I said this, that shows that you are willing to preserve, not trying to restrict, but to preserve, right? When we're telling boys on how to be a certain way, we're telling girls on how to be a certain way in their personal behavior. When we're teaching boys how to be young men, when we're teaching girls how to be young women and young ladies and things, like these are things not to say, oh, you can't be yourself, but it's just simply saying, hey, look, this is a way to preserve your dignity. This is the way to preserve your purity, your innocence, and all of those things, right? So, it's a fine line that I think that we all have to walk. And I think it certainly starts with us because some of us as adults, we struggle with this. Kimberly, we struggle with blackness. Now, we can come into the chat, we can come onto the show, and we can talk about black on black. But then after a couple of hours of this, we watch Big Brother roll, and we be all blacked up. Then we get out into the street.
I'm not struggling too much, Farajii. I'm too unapologetically black at this point. Like, I took some.
I ain't said everybody. Look,
and I was very intentional.
I ain't said everybody. Look.
Yeah,
look.
I can't.
Look. But see, no. And I mean, I'm gonna say this with sincere humility. When you are super quote unquote pro black, right? There's a cost and there's a penalty. There is consequences attached to that when you go into any space. We just talked about that with Claude Tillett and what happened with him as a superintendent. And Kimberly made an excellent point. He just got so comfortable with being in that space that he was
in the social structure.
You know what I'm saying? And I get that, right? But there's a yearning there. But it's all about making sure that we don't lose sight of ourselves in this process, because we all know that being a part of this system, after a while, it will diminish, it will water down your sense of self to the point you become unrecognizable. And I think that's the great concern that I think all of us have, that we're trying to hold on to something. And I want to, at least let's put that picture back up one more time, because I'm trying to stay like this for eons. I want to be drenched in locks.
Sharing this, I hope it brightens your day just a little bit. But like I said, it was just one of the first pictures I took in the museum, and this was just so jarring. It was just a continuous conversation of you expect to see things, but there were so many unexpected surprises, and that was definitely one of them. So.
Janelle said, our sister Janelle, she said, Corinne and Kimberly, our ancestors' hairstyles were so elaborate that archaeologists thought they were actual crowns. There's a real struggle for them to recognize how our culture have the perfect royal accessory. Excuse me. That's an excellent point, Janelle. Thank you so much. All right, look, we got to take a quick break here. When we come forward, let's talk about how progressives are urging President Biden to act now on racial justice and reparations. I'm going to share with you what the correspondence that a number of Black lawmakers have put together, and what they would expect the president to do before the next presidential election coming up in November. They say, look, we got to get this thing done. You need to institute some executive orders now, Mr. President. We'll talk about that effort. And also, we'll be checking in and talking about the life and the great legacy of our sister, Hadaya Broadbent, the HIV activist who dedicated her life to making sure that our public health is intact. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
You heard why we're marching, and it's really a launch. It's not even a march. We're launching
That's right.
a 42-week campaign, March the 2nd at 10 o'clock in Raleigh and 33 other state capitals and the District of Columbia. This is a historic move to mobilize the most powerful untapped block of voters in this country, poor and low wealth voters, who make up 87 million votes. And it's never been tried before. Never been tried before in history. At the same time, the same message, same focus. And when that power turns loose, they will not be able to figure out the political calculus. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to shake things up. I'm ready to get up out of the valley. I'm ready for God to put his spirit on us. I'm ready to be used to change this nation. And what we're saying is, can't we come together? Can't we come together around an agenda? You ain't got to like everything about Remark. You don't have to like everything about Sangria. You don't have to like everything about Long Choir. But can we come together and say, it's time to end poverty as the fourth leading cause of death? It's time to have $15 and a living wage indexed with inflation. So every time inflation goes up, the minimum wage goes up. It's time to have health care for all. It's time to fully fund public education. Can't we come together? It's time to protect women's right to women's health. It's time to have affordable housing for everybody. It's time to stop the proliferation of guns. Ain't no way folk ought to be able to have more guns than they have food, more guns than they have meat on their table. That makes no sense. Isn't it time for division to be ended and love to take over? Can't we organize around that? Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I don't need to like everything about you, but can't we organize for power? Can't we stand for justice? Can't we love everybody for just a little while? Can't we come up out of the valley? Can these bones live?
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to speak to our issues. Y'all better understand something real quick. We ain't going nowhere. It is a continual battle that we see all across this country. Revolution will not be televised. The revolution will be streamed.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
He makes sure that our stories are told.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sisters, my fellow contributors to the show, my sister Kimberly Morrow and my sister Corinna Denise, as we have been talking about issues of education and dress code. But I want to switch gears and let's talk politics, something that both of these women are very, very passionate about. And this story about the efforts of some of our Black lawmakers. This is a very, very, this is a good one. This is a good one because there are a number of progressives, and I'm talking about the likes of our sister Cori Bush and others, who have decided to put the pedal to the metal and decided to put the fire to the feet of the president and the administration to do something around racial justice and reparations. Let me share with you the latest from AP News on this. Take a look at this, folks. In a letter that was sent to the White House on President's Day, great day to do it, U.S. Representatives Barbara Lee, the Democrat out of California, Sheila Jackson Lee out of Texas, Cori Bush, the Democrat out of Missouri, and Jamal Bowman out of New York, urged Biden to use his executive powers to advance the movement for reparations, safeguard Black history, and protect voting rights, among other requests. The progressive House members were joined in solidarity, take a listen, y'all, with 200 organizations led by the National Black Justice Coalition, United by Equity, and Black Music Action Coalition. In the correspondence to the president, it says, for far too long, the scars and trauma of racial inequity have marred the United States and hindered our nation's progress. Our collective history necessitates rectifying the wrongs of the past and present, forging a future where equity and justice are lived realities for all. Let's go to quote number 2, please, Lisa. The correspondence includes a list of legislation and resolutions introduced by Democrats in Congress that Republican lawmakers have stalled. The bills include H.R. 40, which would create a reparations commission to study the impact of U.S. slavery, and a companion resolution that would establish a U.S. Commission on Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. It also includes other bills like a resolution recognizing Banned Book Week, the African American History Act to preserve Black history and culture, and comprehensive voting rights legislation named after the late civil rights leader, U.S. Representative John Lewis. Representative Lee, Jackson Lee, Bush, and Bowman, along with the hundreds of social and civil rights organizations, said the array of legislation was historic and required robust support and decisive executive action to move from potential to reality. My goodness. My goodness. All right, Corinne, I'm going to start with you on this one. This is what we needed. This is putting some gas to this slow moving train a little bit, right? That if we're looking at a situation, I think a lot of people, not just Black people, white people, we've been talking about it. There is a lot of uncertainty among the constituency here in this country. And as a result of that, we're not sure how things will move, or how things will turn out for the November election, and more importantly, how things will turn out for our interests. So they are urging the president to act now on these racial justice issues, reparations, and so much, using the power of executive orders. Talk to me. Why is this so significant? And more importantly, do you think this president will respond the way this coalition of lawmakers and activists are asking him to do?
Well, this is very, very significant. I know that Representative Cori Bush, she proposed her reparations bill earlier this year. And guys, please go online. You can read the actual formal letter. I would encourage you to do that. She did post it on like her IG. I'm sure it's on some of her other social media platforms or her website. It's important that you see those finite details, what's included, because they actually do list a few bills or proposals for executive action by the president, and also invited him to be in meeting with them to discuss and unpack what that actually looks like in further detail. But yeah, it's definitely necessary. But I also want to preface this by saying we have to be very clear. We wouldn't have a chance under a Trump administration or a GOP or a Republican administration. Let's make that very clear. So we have to look at this as Biden and Harris are, as Linda Sarsour says from All Until Freedom, our best opponents, right? Who we could actually pressure and get to meet with us and make some headway to come to a compromise to push our agenda through. That conversation doesn't happen. I mean, I would imagine our legislators would still collaborate and get together, right? And make the urgency and make the issues known. But what is the actual possibility of actually getting something out of those efforts? So I think we're in a crunch time here. And I think the sense of urgency is knowing what's at stake in November. We need to pull the reins with that. But considering that the first term is coming to its end of Biden-Harris, they're pushing forward to say, you know what, this is urgent. We need to get this underway just in case. And I don't even want to talk like that, but it's just the reality, right? So hopefully, too, instead of just executive action, we also need some legislation. So this is a first step, but we also have to remember the bigger picture, that we got to get that legislative branch together, Congress and the Senate, you know, so that the three chambers align so that this could just be codified into law. And we don't have to worry about the unrolling of any executive actions. God forbid another incumbent comes in. But, you know, I think this is great. It's long overdue. Do know that folks are diligently working behind the scenes. Like I said, we need to educate ourselves, get the details as to what that actually looks like. And then this is where we step in, right? Aside from voting, now that we know that they have put this on the table, as participants in this citizenry, we need to make sure we're emailing, writing, calling, or our senators, our representatives, to make sure this gets through, right? You can write the president, the vice president. A lot of people don't even realize that. You can send correspondence to the White House and address your concerns. So we need to actually give them the support with this bill and apply the pressure so that we can actually see something fruitful come out of their efforts.
That is. We got about 30 seconds before we need to take our next pause, Kimberly. But what's your take on this? Progressive urging the president to use his bully pulpit, to use executive orders to move us further along on racial justice and reparations.
I think it's really strategic that they're doing it right now. They're probably very well aware that there are some voters who are not necessarily convinced on this administration, and they're trying to make sure that they do things, present things that will get more and more voters to the polls, instead of just resting on the laurels of they voted for Biden in 2020, they'll vote for him again. So I think it's a wise decision that they're calling for this at this time.
It is a wise decision, and we got to take a quick pause, but here's why it's wise. I think it's wise because it's laid out for the president to just follow. It's easy, bake oven instructions, right? It's like, Mr. President, and someone said in the chat, well, why didn't Kamala Harris, the vice president, why didn't she advocate for this a long time ago? So I'm sure she did. But here's how politics work. You need to have coalitions. You need to have the people signed on to it. It's one thing to have a lawmaker. It's another thing when you have 200 plus groups of people that are signed on to it. That's the one. But then the second thing is saying specifically which bills we need to kind of advance, which bills we need some executive orders on. And that's very interesting. And then the third point, it needs to be done now. It needs to be done now because we don't know what November will bring. We don't know. Now, we can have conversations, we can speculate and all of those good things like, oh, the Trump could get into office, blah, 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 blah. But you need to institute certain things now, because if you want to have a presidency, a legacy that is going to be favorable among Black America, you push these things through in some way, shape, or form, you move the needle on these things, please.
And if
you're going to get the Black vote.
I know we got to take a break, but I just want to quickly just reinforce the point of, we're always laser focused on our president. So yes, there's the pressure right now with the executive action, but we need to be paying attention. Again, I can't stress it enough, to that legislative branch, our House of Representatives and our Senate. Okay, we need to look at their voting record, which is available to you online, congress.gov, to see how they vote on certain bills. A lot of us are not familiar with that, and that is very important because they are the legislators. So if we want something permanent, we need to make sure that we get the House in order and the Senate in order so that that legislation can get to the president's desk and be signed into law, because executive action isn't enough. We know that when they first came into the administration, right, early 2021, there were a lot of things that happened by executive action. And now, rightfully so, and understandably, considering the circumstances, we have our reps in the House, they're pushing for more. But it can't just be executive action on every single thing. So we, the people, we have to pay attention to that legislative branch and get it in order and be pressuring them so that we can actually get meaningful legislation that we need.
Absolutely. All right, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's get your take on this, crew, as we're talking about progressive urging the presidents to move forward on reparations and racial justice initiatives. Join us in the conversation. Post your thoughts on our as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube channel and on Roland Martin's Facebook page. We would love to hear what you have to say. And of course, stay tuned. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Check this out. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are investing a record $7 billion into HBCUs. Billions for campus improvements, grants, and debt relief. Billions more for HBCUs. Endless possibilities for us.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause to long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking about how there are progressive black lawmakers in Congress right now who are urging the president to move forward on using executive actions and orders to make some racial justice legislation a reality. Folks are calling on the president to move forward on everything from reparations to voting rights, to so much more. And this was as a result of a coalition that has been built from starting with the lawmakers, U.S. Representative Barbara Lee from California, Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas, Cori Bush of Missouri, and Jamal Bowman of New York are urging the president to use these executive powers to advance the movement in a very, very big way. Now, this is a letter this was the part of, this is the first page of the letter that was sent to the president. If you go to the White House and to other places and to Congress, to the U.S. Congress website, you can find that this letter was posted. But these lawmakers aren't the only ones who are calling for the president to use executive order on racial justice issues. They are joined in solidarity with 200 organizations led by the National Black Justice Coalition, United by Equity, and Black Music Action Coalition. And we wanted to talk about this because this is a big opportunity for the president to solidify his support for racial justice. And I've been talking to my sisters, Corinna Denise and Kimberly Morrow, about this. And crew, I want to get your take on this as we have this conversation. Kimberly, do you feel like the president would move on something like this? Let me just add a condition. Before the election.
I'm gonna say I hope so. I don't know, Biden has, I want to make it clear, I'm a supporter of Joe Biden. So I'm a little bit biased, but he has done great things for us. However, I don't like the fact that he hasn't moved on this sooner. I think it's been in his wheelhouse to put pressure on the Senate to make sure that the voting rights bill was passed. He could have used his bully pulpit to see that took place. So I don't know. I hope he does. But can I just say this about this that they're asking him to do with regards to the Voting Rights Act, with regards to reparations and social justice issues? He really does need to act on this. Right now, I know a lot of his commercials that are aimed toward the Black community has to do with what he's done for HBCUs. And let's be real, not every Black person has attended or plans to attend an HBCU. That probably resonates with less than 10% of Black people. Let's be real about that. Let's be real about that.
Okay.
And that's just being real. So I think the fact that he's those commercials are celebrating that, that's wonderful to someone like me who attended at HBCU, whose daughter attended at HBCU, whose daughter's grandparents attended at HBCU. But that's just not the reality for many Black people who have not even attended college. So I don't think that's where he should simply celebrate that with the Black community. There should be other things. And I really believe that it's strategic for them to ask for this now. Now let's go to the reparations part. What he has to understand and what many of us has to realize, many of us as Black people are only 2 to 3 generations removed from slavery. I myself am just 2 to 3 generations removed from slavery, depending on how you count it. So my great-grandfather, not my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, my great-grandfather, my father's grandfather was born into slavery. His mother was an enslaved woman who had 2 to 3 children. I have not verified that number, but I know for sure 2, but I think it was 3 sons by her enslaver's son. So this issue of slavery that they try to sell this narrative of that was so many years ago and Black people today are not impacted by it, that is a false narrative. That is a very false narrative. I know who my great-grandfather was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very clear on who he was. My father grew up with his grandfather. So that is something that does impact Black people today. And so that is where we definitely should focus on reparations, the Voting Rights Act, and other social justice issues.
No, I agree. And I think that's an excellent point that you made about HBCUs, Kimberly. I think that if you want to do stuff that really resonates with Black America, it will have to be outside of the HBCU conversation. You're talking about policing issues. You're talking about voting issues. You're talking about economic concerns that many of us have about this, how this country is going to handle that. Like, you're absolutely right. Corinna, what's your take on it?
All of what you said, Kimberly, and I just want to bring it back to early on in the administration, when that was very heavy on the agenda, voting rights, right? But I also want to put some accountability, not only on us as participants in the system, but also just, again, our legislators. I think there was a missed moment in the last midterm elections. I need our legislators to give us some clear, quick, and concise civic lessons. I need some people to talk numbers, because it could have been something as simple as, we didn't get voting rights the first 2 years in the Congress. Well, let's be clear, the House Dems did pass voting rights. It failed in the Senate, and they also passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. But we should have come after Tim Scott for tanking that. We did not do that. Okay. And I also
not hard enough. Nope.
Oh, wait, what now?
No, I said we didn't. We didn't. We weren't hard enough on it.
We weren't hard enough on it. We didn't push back on that. And then something else too, I think, just to know the numbers. Okay, we didn't get in this first 2 years. Give us a majority in the Senate that we need for them to pass it. That way, we're saying, okay, Mr. President, we're giving you some additional power. You need to use your bully pulpit. And we dare you, Senate, not to pass it this time. We don't want to hear crap about, it's 50-50. We don't want to hear anything about a filibuster. We gave you enough so that you could pass it. And I think that's where kind of like the game of chess comes in. We have to observe all the pieces, because now we're back here to this executive action. And maybe we didn't have to do executive action, because we would have voted more in the midterms to make those numbers align, to be pushing and pressuring them and actually have the legislation get to Joe Biden's desk in the Oval. So I think we just have to be mindful of these things, because the reality is we can't executive order our way out of every single thing. We have to pay attention to that legislative branch. And I sound like a broken record, but it's true. They make the legislation. They create policy.
I'm not, and I think what you're saying is absolutely spot on, Corinna. And we can't legislate it, but the purpose of the executive action is to get things done when there is a gridlock. to kind of, keep the ball rolling. I think that with the upcoming election looming, with all of the issues, and we already know who the candidates are going to be with Biden and Trump.
Yeah.
You might as well put that executive action at work. You know what I'm saying? And get some stuff done. Brian Christian, he said this. Brian said Biden should do this if he wants more black voters to vote for him. He should do this because I agree, but let's take it to a higher level, Brian. I think you would agree with me on this one. He should do it because it's the right damn thing to do.
And we need about time. And it's long overdue.
It's long overdue. So this administration, as we wrap up and get one more break in, this administration is facing a very serious crossroads. You can't say, well, nobody said it. You got the coalitions behind you. You got the lawmakers behind. You got the lawmakers around this. We're telling you which pieces of legislation needs to be pushed and advanced. At this point, Mr. President, it's up to you. Now, if the president keeps saying, well, I want to help, I want to do all that I can.
Well, it's up to us too, Farajii, because we have to force his hand. So that's where the pressure comes in. Like,
and guess what?
To reinforce what these legislators are proposing. So now we got to do our part, call, write, pressure.
That's all it is. And that's what politics is about. And if we don't see some sort of acceptance of these conditions, then we can have a different conversation about what November should look like. Look, we got to take a final pause. When we come forward, we'll be checking in, and let's talk about our sister HIV activist, Hadaya Broadbent. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Check this out. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are investing a record $7 billion into HBCUs. Billions for campus improvements, grants, and debt relief. Billions more for HBCUs. Endless possibilities for...
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. As part of those things that people are talking about, we wanted to at least give just a few moments to recognize the great life and legacy of activist Hadaya Broadbent. And I hope I'm saying her name correctly. But this is a sister who rose to prominence as a child. She was diagnosed with HIV when she was 3 years old. She has just recently passed away at the age of 39 years old. So for 36 years, she was living with the virus, and she spent her life advocating for others living with the virus. She was considered to be part of the first generation of children born with HIV positive in the late 1980s. Her father, Lauren Broadbent, announced her death on Facebook, saying, "With great sadness, I must inform you all that our beloved friend, mentor, and daughter Hadaya passed away today after living with AIDS since birth. Despite facing numerous challenges throughout her life, Hadaya remained determined to spread hope and positivity through education around HIV/AIDS." Corinna, this struck a chord for you because this is a sister that, we've all, and some of us may know about the work that she's doing, but this really did strike a chord for you. Talk to us about why.
Yeah, because she and I are the same age, and I remember seeing her story on national TV as a child. Maybe I maybe 6 or 7, and I remember I first saw her on the Jerry Springer show. There was a time when Jerry Springer wasn't ratchet, believe it or not, and I know she was also on Oprah and some other platforms. So I did follow her work, and actually, Farajii, it is Hadaya.
Hadaya. I'm glad thank you for the correction. Yep, Hadaya.
Yeah. So for some who might not know about Hadaya, her mother abandoned her at birth, and her mother was HIV positive. So when her adoptive parents got her, they knew that there was a possibility, but she didn't get the official diagnosis until the age of 3. And doctors told her that she wouldn't even live past the age of 5. But, she was blessed with 39 years. There was a great friend of hers was on Roland earlier this week. If you guys missed that, check that out. She gave some, I thought, profound insight to Hadaya, really humanizing her outside of her activism, which most of us might know her for. But yeah, this young lady, a beautiful soul. I'm so happy that she brought light to people living with HIV. I think this was refreshing to see. Like, a lot of people thought, especially at that time back in the 90s and the 80s, it was pretty much a death sentence. So she kind of brought some light to it to show that you can even contract this. Like, she got it in the womb because of her mother, and not to otherize them because they had this disease. So she lived a full life. God bless her and her family. And yeah, I would say definitely, if you want to learn more about her, she was a great activist, someone that we lost, but now we have a new ancestor. So.
Absolutely. And Kimberly, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about, the importance of this type of advocacy. Again, she was a child of the first generation. And now we're at a point now, Kimberly, that people are living full, healthy lives, even though they may have they got the virus. There's new medicine and technology out there to help people live much longer. So any thoughts that you want to share as we talk about Hadea Broadbent?
I just remember seeing her on the Oprah show years ago, and I love that she humanized everything. So we saw her as a child. We saw her as a person. We didn't just see her as someone with a disease. So I love the work that she did, and I loved how she humanized everything. And I just pray that we honor her legacy, and we remember that whether you've been afflicted with HIV or AIDS, whatever the case may be, that we treat everybody with love and with kindness. And I just want to leave it on that note.
No, that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. There was a moment where she appeared on a Nickelodeon special about HIV and AIDS with Magic Johnson in 1992. And she said on that special, "I just want people to know that we're just normal people." That's when Magic hugged her and said, "You don't have to cry because we are normal people, okay? We are." And so she has shown that not only are you normal, but you can almost be superhuman, where you're still living a life that is full of life, that's still making an impact. And so our hearts and prayers and condolences go out to her and throughout her family. And we hope and pray that her work is never forgotten. Her advocacy is always lifted up. And more importantly, that she always had the spirit to live. So rest in power and rest in peace to our sister Hadea Broadbent, who passed away earlier this week. Corinna, Kimberly, thank you so much for joining me. As always, fantastic conversations. And I look forward to connecting with you sisters next week, God willing.
You didn't need your suit today. You're good.
Farajii, can I leave us on a...
Please, go ahead. Okay. Yes, ma'am. We got about 30 seconds.
Okay, so this is our last Friday of Black History Month. Next
That's
week,
right.
It'll be March 1st. So we were talking about reparations, and this is a great time to remind our Black families that the best way for you to learn about Black history is to study your family history. And a lot of times we can do that at our family reunion. So my teacher today is from our family reunion this past summer.
There we go. There we go.
I can represent every Friday. And so when you go to your family reunion, or hey, plan a family reunion, but learn that family history. So that I just wanted to leave off on that note for our Black History Friday.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for making that point. And I think that's an excellent piece of advice that we need to keep taking consideration of. Also, we want to give a big shout out to Lori Bird and Colorful Hair Esty for both Colorful Hair and Lori Bird. Thank you for being investors and stakeholders. They gave a little something, put something in the bucket for Black Star Network, as they, as we often call in our people to do, to support us here on the culture and the Black Star Network. So I truly appreciate them for putting something in the pot to help us continue to power us through this space of this digital space that we're on. So thank you so much for your donations. All right, Corinna, Kimberly, thank y'all so much. God willing, we'll see each other next week. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk very soon.
All right, peace.
All right.
Peace. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much, crew, for joining us in the conversation. Big shout out to each and every one of you. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Make sure you go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media. And while you're also there, make sure you follow me. Yours truly. You can find me on Instagram at The Real Farajii on Instagram and at Farajii on the X platform. And I would love to connect with you. Stay tuned. 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk on Monday for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Peace.